Guys, it's recording. Anything? I swear. Do you not think? Oh, it's the alien from Toy Story. I thought that like Mike Wazowski.
We thought that as well, but it hasn't got 3 eyes.
Oh, what the fuck? That's why I thought it was Mike Wazowski because it had 1 eye. Should we do a podcast then? Do you want to know what I was listening to when I was last on Spotify? It was the answer is 6-inch Feet the Weekend Beyonce. Great song. Fun fact. Oh yeah, audio testing. Ethan, can you talk, please?
Meh.
Marcus.
Ma.
Callun.
I feel like you stitched me right up here.
Hello and welcome back to Sweet Fifthunit podcast. I'm moving my laptop because I was in a shit position. It's episode number 18. We're on Zoom again because we're in lockdown again because we're a fucking shit country, but really man. Today we have a sweet, cool guest, Callun Lavington.
Hello. Hi.
Give away. Yes. Give away. And we got Ethan waving as well. And then Marcus and myself. Today we're going to talk. So Callun, talk me through. Right, first things first. How did you get into parkour?
It's a classic question.
Story.
It's I don't know really. It's I started it in 2012, May time. So kind of as the summer was starting to pick up, it was always kind of something that I'd seen it on YouTube and stuff like that. I think the first video I saw was Storm Volume 1, and it's that clip where Blue does the front flip down the stairs, and I saw that and I was like,
oh, the first clip, like when he has the Supreme
like the very first,
yeah,
and he just runs and flips down these stairs, and I saw it and I was just completely mesmerized. And back then I used to play a lot of like Call of Duty and stuff like that. So I used to game like massively like years ago, and I felt I was getting to a point where I was like, I don't do football, I don't do cricket, I don't do any of these other sports because I didn't really either fit in with the people who were doing those sports or enjoy them. And I just saw this video of a bunch of henchmen throwing themselves off of concrete structures, and I thought, that's pretty cool. So me and my mate went into Horsham and we started, and I haven't stopped since. So nearly 10 years now.
It's 10 years. You're dead on 10 years.
No, I'm coming up to 9 now.
9, okay.
For 9 years, the sort of pushing the 10-year mark. I've probably known about it for about 10 years, but
yeah,
only been sort of practicing it for the last 8.5, 9 years. So.
Yeah, I'm on the 9-10 years as well. It's bare long. Can't believe that. Marcus, I swear you're on like 11 or something.
Yeah, 10, 11, something like that. Callun, I've also just got to clarify that I wasn't laughing at you for playing Call of Duty. I was laughing because it reminded me that me and Chris have just spent the last 9 hours playing Call of Duty.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're the new one, playing Warzone.
Nah, just Warzone.
You
played it?
Literally about 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I bought PlayStation 4. I know the PlayStation 5's coming out, but everyone was on about Warzone, so I was like, I really want to play it now. So
you play it? You want to play after this?
Yeah, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're doing like a big tourney between teams in private lobbies. It's gonna be quality.
Yeah, well,
you're gonna get some of the other contender boys in it.
Yeah, I think Harry and Joy will play it. So I think Oliver's the only one who doesn't.
We've got a 5th unit team ready to go, and then we've got I know like Max Barker plays, and then like the Sora boys play as well. So it's gonna be fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sounds sick. That's like pretty much that's like a classic story. I feel like everyone just sort of like doesn't really know what they want to do, and then they end up doing parkour because it looks cool. What's the deal? How did Contendunt start? Tell me through Contendunt. Because if you don't know, Callun is the owner of a parkour brand called Contendunt, and they do cool stuff. And they make videos and clothing and shit. And he's actually wearing a secret hoodie. He's not showing the logo because it's secret. There it is.
It's nude, I've been told.
Nude.
That means.
I didn't hear that at all, Chris.
It means naked, and I whispered it. So it was, like, weird, but it didn't really work. But talk us through, how did that, like, where did the concept come from?
So when I was a kid, like, I had no sense of style whatsoever. Like, I was wearing like shit. Like, it was awful.
Everyone's like that.
As I kind of started training more and traveling around, meeting new people, kind of just pick up like little bits of inspiration from everywhere. Started getting into kind of like, not necessarily fashion design, but looking into like streetwear and stuff like that. And just being kind of inspired by being in this sport at such an early stage of its development. Like, there's so much room for products and teams and brands to all kind of start like kind of flourishing in parkour. And that was kind of my inspiration. Like, you've got like your Storms, your Stories, your Motus, who are these really big brands in parkour now. And we kind of wanted to set out and do something which was more for what kind of stuff do I enjoy to wear, what kind of stuff did people always talk to me about, and kind of making it, because when I started, like, the market was for like a younger parkour market, like it was for kind of the younger community, a lot of the kids that I was kind of teaching. Because, and I'm not saying this is at all like bad or anything like that, but the biggest complaint that I was hearing from some of the kids and from their parents as well was that where parkour clothing was moving to be so progressive and everything was being custom made, that it was quite pricey for some of them to afford. So we kind of wanted to set out and try and make more of a budget friendly parkour brand for those people who couldn't necessarily afford like the more higher end products from, like Stora, Motus, Farang, things like that. So
It's actually really interesting, because I like, whenever I think about the idea of that, when we make Fifthunit stuff, I only think like if when we like think about what we're gonna make, my idea is always just like, what would I like, as opposed to not like what would a younger kid like, or like would they be able to wear this or afford this or want to wear this. It's like, what do I like, and then making that, and then just hoping other people like it, I guess. Annual concept on that. But it's actually sick that you're like,
yeah,
trying to get people like the younger generation to then have clothing that they can wear and is accessible to them, if that makes sense.
that's it. It's the whole like fear of missing out thing. Like, I know people who can't necessarily afford, like, schools absolutely fucking relentless. Like, you go to school and if you're not wearing a Nike t-shirt, or you don't have a Nike backpack, or a kid could have like a Sports Direct brand, for example, and the bag would look exactly similar to something that Nike make, but the difference is Nike's not on the backpack, and therefore that other bag is inferior. But I wanted to try and kind of bring clothing so people could feel involved with parkour. So they could be involved and not feel like they're missing out because they don't have the latest gear from the bigger teams.
Yeah,
I feel it's probably the best way to word it.
yeah, that sounds sick. That's like it's like inclusion without the people that can't necessarily get the bigger brands, or like don't want those bigger brand things, can still feel included in parkour because they have cheaper stuff or like more accessible stuff themselves, and then they get to feel like part of the bigger community.
Exactly. It's just about,
that's also part of parkour.
Like, making things accessible to people, I think, is the overall aim. Especially because where I was coaching in Crawley as well, it's not the most wealthy area, and like I said, like, the market was predominantly the kids that I was teaching. So I wanted to make stuff that they could afford, therefore they could feel involved, and then when they post a photo or a video on Instagram, we can reshare it and kind of show them to the wider community as well.
Yeah, sick. That's
cool.
Sick.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was any ways you were doing that other than like a price point, but that's fucking sick.
We really want to, like, I'm in no way a huge, figurehead in the community, but I do like to think that, like, I've always been under the impression if I can improve someone's life in just one way, or make an impression on their life, then for me that's like enough that's my goal, is just to help people, whether it's share a clip and that clip gets a like from one of like a parkour athlete that they aspire to, or just the idea of being reshared and feeling like that they've earned that reshare, like giving them that gratification, I guess is probably the best way to put it. But if I can just improve their life or their mental state or whatever in the smallest way possible, and they take some benefit from that, then that's enough for me to kind of go off and be feel like I've completed what I set out to do almost.
Yeah, and then in the process, you also open their eyes a bit more to like wider parkour, because they get into like your stuff, and then from there they then build into like the other stuff as well, because you're like, you'll have your brand and your knowledge will be bigger than theirs, so they'll like see yours, and then like they can spread, and like it all integrates together.
I think you're
like that.
I was saying, from what you're talking about, Contendunt, and your sort of, well, essentially what your mission statement is, you're perfectly placed where you are. And I don't mean within Crawley as in, like you were saying, it's not necessarily the sort of most wealthy area. I mean that it's an area that's quite densely populated, doesn't have an established previously to you guys, doesn't have an established team necessarily linked to it. I know Stora did a lot in the early days in Crawley and Horsham. And you've got the gym. So those things combined is literally a perfect sort of starting point for a brand that believes in what you do.
I think if I wasn't in the position that I'm in, like we would be nowhere near as achieved than what we kind of set out to do beforehand. It's like you said, we've got, I live in Horsham, so you've got Horsham, which is where Stora are from, or a couple of the Stora lads are from. So there's that kind of aspect that people are coming down to travel to Horsham to still train. We can meet them through that, and then obviously some of the older kids from the gym come out on those training sessions. They might get to meet some of the people that they aspire to, or they just get to go out and train. And then you've got the gym in Crawley, which is a bunch of younger people who all know Stora. They've gone onto YouTube and they typed in parkour and the Stora videos come up. But we then help them grow their, like you guys are saying, with community knowledge and kind of reaching out a bit more within the community, finding out more brands and stuff like that. So it all does link so well together. And it's made things so much easier on my behalf, kind of setting everything up. And, you know, the gym's been great. Like we were supposed to be running an event there earlier this year, but it was, I think, scheduled for 2 weeks after the first lockdown happened. So we had to cancel that.
Oh yeah, that was like the competition and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That was gonna be so sick. I was actually gassed on that. I remember.
The other difference between you as a brand, I'm sort of partially repeating what you've just said, but whereas Motus say they're based in Tunbridge Wells, but nothing about their brand says we're in Tunbridge Wells. And the same way, to an extent as well, Stora now are essentially all of them. Well, yeah, all of them live in Brighton now, but they're not. They're not linked to Brighton necessarily. Whereas I think you are different in a sense that you're linked to the community. You're more of like a community brand. And then doing so, you have more of a responsibility in a good way. I mean, a responsibility to introduce people to the sport and introduce them to the wider community. You're almost like a stepping stone for people to discover, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's kind of this. So our team. So we do want to branch our team out. Like we're currently, there's 4 of us. So it's myself, Oliver, Harry, and George. All of us are from Horsham, but it's like you were saying, we've kind of stuck to our grassroots because that's how we started, and we all are kind of in agreement that if it wasn't for the gym, if it wasn't for training in Horsham, if it wasn't for, like you said, having those stepping stones, you've got to think, when I started, I would like to think I'm in the position now that for me, like the Parkour Sundays guys were, or Storra were back then, when they were still kind of around, in and around Horsham quite frequently. Like, you have the older generation of people to look up to and guide you, and that's now the position that I feel like I want to be in, and I feel like I should be doing and helping people with. So yeah, we definitely like to keep it kind of grassroots and community focused. We've got plans for more community events, but obviously COVID has just shot everything down at the minute.
Yeah, because you did that jam was it last year? Yeah, it must have been last year.
Yeah.
I was sick. I had crazy amount of people there. I was actually shook. It was literally, I got there, it was like 30 people. I was like, why? Since when is there 30 people training in Horsham? Kind of mad. Like, what was your idea behind doing the jam? Were you just like, I want loads of people to train in Horsham, or did you think you have like an idea of a concept of like bringing people together and or anything like that? Or was it just?
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of both. I feel like Horsham, the traffic towards Horsham had definitely died down massively since, like, from what it used to be, probably about like 5-6 years ago, compared to what it's been the last few years. You don't get anywhere near as many people coming to visit, which, you know, that probably happens in places. You give it maybe another couple of years and there will be a resurgence. But the community presence in Horsham died, and the kind of parkour tourism in Horsham died as well. So I was like, I want to try and run a jam, and I just want it to bring people together, expose more people to Horsham as like a training area, and let them know that there is a scene here. The scene is still very much alive, despite what people think, and just to meet new people. Like, the last few years, I've really wanted to focus more on reaching out more to the wider community and just getting to know people. Like, my first kind of proper experience with that was when we all went to For the Love of Movement in 2018, and that was my first proper like parkour event, and I just met so many people from like diverse and different backgrounds, and I was like, that's really cool. And unfortunately, I don't have the facilities or the budget or the scale to run something like that, but I just wanted to be like, look, I want to run this jam and we'll see how it goes. And I think I made an event on Facebook, and I think maybe like 15-20 people said that they were going. So I was like, cool, like that's a good amount. Like, I'm happy with that amount. And
Yeah.
got to the day, and I think it totaled something about 50 people showed up, and I was like, this is like fucking crazy. Like, for me, that felt so good that so many people came down. A lot of them never being to Horsham before. They were all training. Everyone was getting on with each other. People were mixing. People were talking. Horsham Council left us alone, which was fantastic. And yeah, it was just a really good time. And I was definitely like blown away by it. You know, in comparison to like London jams and stuff like that, it's tiny. But for Horsham, I think that's up there with probably the biggest amount of people we've had training in the town. So.
Yeah, sick. It was actually so sick. I remember just like getting there. I was like, because obviously we train Horsham as well because we live relatively local. So like, I think it's like you guys and us, like most of the people that train in Horsham. And I just got there and like all the spots that are like sometimes kind of small. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is a fun little spot. And then there was just like 60 people, like at Candy Box, which is literally like 2 walls or like
yeah.
there's just like 60 people like along the alleyway. Like it was just mad because like you couldn't always jump because there'd always be someone underneath you or something like that. That was really fucking cool. And I met loads of
Crazy.
people. It was sick. They love to meet people. And then
What's the relationship like with the council now in Horsham?
We're definitely in a better place for sure. So bit of like,
actually, can you give us a bit of context? Yeah, a bit of context.
Yeah, bit of backstory. So like back way back when, 2013, 2014, Horsham was known for its rooftops. You had like Candy Box roof camp, and Candy Box Mission, and then Townland and the High Street and East Street. So, and I think Stories 100, like a lot of that video was shot on the rooftops of Horsham. So it was really like almost a breeding ground for rooftop training, definitely in the kind of the southeast area anyway. a lot of complaints were called. Back then there was a massive group of us training as well, and the council didn't take too kindly to it. There was a lot of back and forth of people saying it shouldn't be allowed, and others saying it's really good for young people. It stops them from going to the skate park and smoking like weed and doing drugs and drinking alcohol and stuff like that. So there's a lot of like back and forth, and I think
that's a big no from us.
Yeah, never.
There was a big back and forth, and they turned around and they were just like, yeah, it's banned. I think it was me, David, and Alex Witchell sat in a meeting when they banned it. We all put forward a case as to like why it shouldn't be banned. But
That's so sick. You went to like the meeting. We're just like, nah, don't ban it, please.
Yeah, literally, like we were sat in there, and they were like, okay, you guys have 3 minutes to put forward your case as to why it should be banned. So David, being the oldest, and I say most mature out of all of us, went up, explained everything. I think it fell on deaf ears, to be honest. I think to them it had become such a problem that they found it easier banning it. But then 2 months later, it got made a sport in the UK. So they had to, by law, unban it because they couldn't physically ban a sport. So we were like, wicked, like, ban's gone, that's fine. So they changed the ban to, instead of banning parkour, they called it causing a nuisance and unauthorized access in street furniture, which is a broad spectrum. So they changed that, but what that means is that we can now still train parkour in Horsham, but like if we're being rude, reckless, damaging things, they can then fine us, arrest us, or whatever. So there's been back and forth for years, and our relationships now are better. I think where I've actually sat down and spoken to a lot of like the official figures properly, they've kind of understood that, and I feel like parkour's grown to the point now as well where people don't just see it as a group of people, like young people jumping off walls and playing loud music. Like I now think more people understand what goes into doing it, and you're not just throwing yourself across something and it's the first time you're doing it. It's years of practice and years of training, and you know how to stop yourself if you fall. So the relationship's good. You can come and train Horsham without any problems, unless you're kind of being an arrogant dick about it. I guess it's probably the best way to word it. So, but like, have you guys had any like problems recently?
In Horsham?
Not mad.
Yeah, in Horsham.
A guy, like maybe after the first lockdown, but before this one, like when we were allowed to go back in groups again, we were like training at Subway, like in the one in the middle of town. And there was a guy who came over and he had a badge, but he wasn't in uniform. And he was like, he was just saying that we weren't allowed to train there, and it was still banned. And then something else I can't remember.
Oh, was this when I came into the conversation?
Maybe, yeah.
That guy.
Yeah, and I think we were just like, okay, that's fine, we'll go. Like there's no point arguing about it. We were just like, we were like, we're pretty sure it's unbanned, but we're not totally sure, so we'll just go.
Yeah, like there's a lot of that. There's a lot of and I don't mean to chat. Yeah, I was gonna say Dorking's not exactly. Like, every time I go,
one PTSO who just like screams at everybody, and it's so strange because nothing we're doing is like ever like bad. We're just like training and they just scream, and it's like there's no need.
It's really rare to get kicked off a spot in Dorking. I feel like there's maybe a couple that are a bit more likely for it to happen, but I like from my years of training there, like it rarely happens compared to like different places. Like maybe it happens a bit more in Horsham, I'd say. Like obviously because that rule.
The relationship with spots in smaller towns is different because, like, if you live in somewhere like, well, I don't know, central London or something like that, you're not likely to you're at different spots more. You're never at the same spot as often as in, say, if you're in Dorking. If you're out training in a day, you're basically running the same sort of route. So you're going to be at the same spots more often. You're going to start recognizing faces of shop owners and things like that, and you sort of inevitably have a different relationship. Like, I think you then have to learn to, which everyone in Dorking knows it. We're very polite and respectful of opening hours if we need to be, or whatever's going to improve that relationship. And I think that like small town attitude isn't the same everywhere. Like, there are people I can think of who I'd be nervous to show around a local spot because there's the risk of them damaging the relationship that we've built over so and so many years of training there. That's a weird thing to me. And I think it's the same for Horsham. It is small enough still that you build these relationships with PCSOs and shop owners and things like that, and those like local rules should be respected, otherwise the whole sport is damaged.
Yeah, which it sounds like you're doing, like having the conversation. Figureheads and stuff.
Yeah, like Marcus essentially hit the nail on the head. Like you know what times you can go where, and you know where the best sort of times of day are to go to this place, that place, and so on. I don't ever think there was ever really a point where free runners or like parkour athletes, or whatever you want to brand yourself as, whatever necessarily disrespectful to people. But I definitely feel like at one point there was a time, and I guess it just comes with being a kid, that you want to stand up to authority. And especially in the early days, how someone approached you and moved you on, definitely I think set the course for how your interaction with them was going to go. Nowadays, we're all, regardless of who's coming up to us, it could be a nice old lady, it could be a grumpy man, it could be someone acting really aggressive. We're just going to treat them like we're going to be calm, collected, and just be like, okay, like we'll move. If you want us to move, that's fine. We'll come back later. We'll come back another day, and so on. Whereas back in the day, there was a lot of confrontation going on, and I think that definitely impacted the relationship in the town for sure. But yeah, nowadays we rarely get any problems, and if the PCSOs come up to us, I'm just like, I've spoken to a few people, like I've got emails and stuff on my phone saved, so if anyone says you can't do it here, I'll be like, there's an email saying I can, like offer the numbers and names and stuff like that. So, and it's like, that's the problem. I don't actually think the Horsham District Council and the West Sussex Police and all that actually have any clue what the set rules are in the town. Like, I hear something different every time. There's always an excuse, or there's always a reason, and it's either one that I've heard or it's one that they've tweaked ever so slightly. Like, it's really bizarre. Like, there's not a fixed rule book, if it were.
Yeah, well, I guess like
instead in passing,
it's all a bit up to interpretation, because when they say stuff like street furniture, what is street furniture? Is candy box is not street furniture. Candy boxes do really high walls. Like, you can't, because no one's going to sit on that, so it can't be furniture. It has to be a wall. That makes sense. So like, you could argue that that's not against the rules, so you can't be kicked off there. But then obviously it is private property, so like different levels to it. I guess it's all just like,
I'd say
interpretation.
Like one story that really sticks out for me, when this rule kind of came into play. So the way that the public spaces protection order is laid out is no causing a nuisance or damaging or unauthorized access to street furniture. So like, okay, like you said, what counts as street furniture? Because a kid could be running on the rocks, and that could be seen as causing a nuisance or unauthorized access. So the kid, for example, isn't going to get penalized or done for it. So we were training at Rocks, so it's kind of centre of Horsham, and it's 4:30, 5 o'clock in winter, so town is completely dead. It's really quiet. The shops are starting to close, and we're just outside, just getting on with it. And this shop owner comes out really aggressively and starts shouting, screaming, pointing the finger. And we're just like, look, like, we're sorry, like, we thought this was a good time for us to kind of come down and train. And he's going, no, like, you're pushing business away from my property. Like, you do nothing. Like, you're low life. You're doing nothing. And then he turned around to the guy in the shop that he worked with and told him to phone the police because we were acting in a way that we were going to rob his shop.
Whoa!
And that's not the first time it's like that's happened in Horsham either. Like, a lot of people think that we're doing what we're doing to steal. We're like hanging around these places because we're waiting for them to shut so we can go.
It's such a weird concept, such a weird way to look at things. But I guess some people are just super worried of that sort of thing.
Yeah. I get the paranoia because, you know, like with the rooftop problem that Horsham was having, your access onto the rooftops is behind all of these shops. Like, you're having to go behind these shops to get up on these roofs, which does look a little bit dodgy. But it's just the way that the situation just flips. So it's better now. It's so much better.
Yeah. Especially if you're being like civil with someone and then they suddenly like turn on you like you're about to rob their shop. That's gonna be a bit like strange.
Well, so I always look at it in the situation of that's someone's dad, or that's someone's granddad, or that's someone's relative, boyfriend, partner, whatever, like whatever you want to brand it as. I don't want that person to go home and be like, I've had a really bad day because these group of lads were outside my shop and they were rude and they were disrespectful and stuff. Like, I would just, how would that make me feel if someone was acting that way towards me? And, you know, it's not pleasant. So you've just got to, like you said, be polite, be respectful. They can take that any way they want. At the end of the day, I've said my bit, I've done my bit. I've not been rude, I've not been disrespectful, I'm just saying what I'm saying, and then if it does ever get to the point, I'll just pick up the bag and go. It's something that I definitely want to distance myself away from now in the position that we're in. We want it to work out for everybody. Like, I don't want people coming to Horsham and getting ridiculed by shop owners or PCSOs because of the negative stigma that's been there before. So.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like doing all the right stuff, to be honest. Like, just keeping it chill, talking to the people, like making sure they know what you're about and why you're doing this stuff. Not like never being aggressive. That's the key thing. You spoke earlier about the Contendunt team. Can we get some clarification on in terms of like the clothing stuff, or like, so you said you've got Oliver, George, and Harry, and then is there anyone else? Or just
no, it's just us four at the minute.
Are they just training sort of stuff and making videos, or do they do any other behind the scenes stuff, anything like that? And then also, how did you come about with like the team? Like, because I remember originally, I feel like it was just you. I don't know if that's certain, but I feel like it was just you, and then you brought them in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So the started off with just me, and Harry was one of those people that you kind of just see out and about training. But back then we were both like way too awkward to kind of approach each other and speak to each other because that's just how we were as individuals. He then came to Traversal one evening, and me and him were just chatting. He's like, "Oh, I train in Horsham," and I was like, "You know, hit me up like whenever. Drop me a message. We can go out and train." So we started training together. We got on really well, and he got very good very rapidly. And I was like, I want to kind of bring him on because then he can train, like he can do what we want. I can try and provide him with free clothing or eventually opportunities in the future, like when everything kind of, and I said this from the beginning as well, I was like, I'm not going to be able to offer the world straight away, but if you want to help and support us in growing, then that would be great. And I think that's what each three of these guys do, is they back the project and want to be involved in helping it grow. And it just means that it's not a one-man band, but I've got help doing certain things. So George and Harry at the moment, just train and get like clips and stuff like that. Like they've just done their GCSEs, they're now at college, so I'm never going to turn around and be like, you need to do this, you need to do that, because they've got their own things that they need to be doing. Oliver more recently has started like wanting to do more, so he wants to start doing the emails, and he's been doing like networking stuff and social media posts and all of that. So he's now taking on a bit more of a role where I can focus solely on like speaking to graphic designers and stuff like that, or speaking to the clothing people properly. Whereas he's like, okay, I'll do the social media, I will upload, I will reply to comments, I will flag anything up that needs to be flagged up or anything. So we've now got quite a nice dynamic where I'm not having to juggle everything on top of my full-time job, on top of coaching, on top of this, that, and the other. Because I think that was the problem before, was I was doing it all by myself and I was just burning out. Like I was getting up early to go to work, finishing work early, having like a 2-hour window to do Contendunt bits and then coach in the evening and then rinse and repeat like the whole time. And then in that time, I have to find time to run to the post office and post on social media and answer this email or sort that return. And it just all kind of stacked up. So now it just spreads the weight there in a little bit.
Yeah, that's so sick. I'm so glad he's so keen to do that. That's fucking cool. Especially as they're all quite young. So like just to be keen to do that sort of thing at that age is just fucking cool. I rate that a lot.
Yeah, no,
are there plans to expand?
Yeah, we do want to expand. It's at the moment it's the whole COVID thing. I have always been under the impression, like, although it's a very like community focused thing, I want everyone in the group to know each other and really get on with each other. And we've like the last few months have been like keeping my eyes peeled and looking around and seeing who pops up on the radar and stuff like that. But I can't ever fully commit to anything because the 3 others haven't met those individuals yet. So I want to make sure that they all get on well with each other. Like the last thing that I want is any kind of conflicts or confrontations, because it's natural. Like people, you're not going to get on with everyone in the world. From past experience, I've learned that if you fall out with people that you're working with, it just doesn't. Things crumble apart very, very quickly. And this is my baby essentially. Like I do not want that to happen. So eventually we will expand out. There are plans to, once A, COVID's over, and B, we can start traveling around a bit more again. So
cool. Fucking sick. I'm gassed to see it. I'm gassed to see Contendunt like different places in the UK or even like abroad and just like making videos and shit. That's so sick. Did you have plans for trips and stuff before this whole lockdown shit, or are you just sort of coasting by trying to do UK stuff or anything like that?
a bit of both really. So I went to France last year.
Oh yes.
Really enjoyed that trip. So I wanted to go back again this year. So I met quite a few guys out there, and they were like, "If you ever want to come and train, like just let us know. Like we can pick you up and stuff." So I wanted to do that and kind of look more, instead of making an action edit, making more of like a documentary piece about the influence training in Ivry and Leeds has had on the current generation of people that train there. So that was that plan, but that very quickly fell through. I was supposed to book that in March, and once I got paid, I was like, "There's no way I'm not going anywhere this year." So, and then obviously for the love of movement again, I wanted to do that again this year.
Yeah, it's always fucking sick.
And I think we had one more. Oh, Malta. I was supposed to be going to Malta with my girlfriend, and I got the green light from her that I could go and train for a day. So I was gonna hit up the parkour path and then jump off a few of the cliffs in the like, kind of afternoon, evening. But again, got cancelled. So
yeah,
we were pretty limited. But those 3 are all still on the list. I want to get the lads out to these events as well, so that they can meet the wider community. Because my mistake that I made.
Get those boys to For the Love. We'll go as a big group.
Yeah,
we're Contendunt unit.
That's the plan.
He's so sick.
Like my biggest mistake when I was younger was not going to events and going to like the bigger jams. So I'm very keen to kind of push them in that direction and make them go and experience it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, because everyone needs that. If you haven't been to For the Love, you have to go because it's fucking incredible. I love it.
Oh, just the best few days.
Yeah, always.
Honestly.
Training.
Literally, Christmas and New Year won't be the same this year without For the Love.
You didn't go last year, mate.
No, 2 in a year, two in a row is criminal. Yeah.
Well, 60. I had a great time.
Malta is so good for training; it's ridiculous.
I heard that's a lie.
No, actually, okay. I'd like to amend my statement. It would be if the walls stayed a wall instead of a pile of rocks. Everything crumbles.
Like there's a really sick park out there, though.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really good. It's weird. It's weird though. Like the best bit of the park, I think, is the sort of entrance bit into the park. So like there's like the parkour bit, and then all around it there's like levels and walls and stuff to like get down into it. That's the best bit of the spot, I think. But anyway,
yeah, because I heard the parkour park was all right. I heard, apparently it's like weird because it's like not actual walls. It's like a bunch of like weird like things.
Yeah, they're like shapes, they're like concrete shapes.
Yeah. And then apparently, other than the park, there's not that many spots. I don't know. Well, I've never been.
No, there is. There is.
I've only seen. Oh, to be fair, I've seen clips from Dodds in Malta? Question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does a running pre-player.
Yeah, I think so.
And that looks sick. So there you go. Perfect. When you go, Callun, look for a running pre-player. You'll be chilling.
I shall.
As opposed to Contendunt, what aspirations do you have as a solo person? Because it's not all about Contendunt. I also want to know about you. Like in terms of parkour, maybe. So in terms of life, if you want to tell me all your life aspirations, that's good as well. Because I have plenty.
My just like sorry, like I was saying earlier on, is just being able to improve someone's day, week, year, month, whatever, by that little bit. Like I just want to be able to have that impact on people, that they feel like that they've either learned something, achieved something, or done something because of the influence that I have had on them. Like I like to just try and help people with what they're doing is, I think, the first kind of aspiration that I've got. Just being able to provide work for people through parkour or through the brand, like that's a given as well. I don't know how much I can relay about this plan that I've got, but I'm working on something pretty fucking big at the minute, and I'm well gassed about it. But it's going to take about.
How big are we talking?
Come on.
I'm not 100% sure if this is true, but it is, I think, the first of its kind in the school.
Well, that sounds bloody sick. Now I'm definitely intrigued and I want to know.
What can you tell us, Callun?
Yeah. Is there anything you can tell us a bit more specific?
I'm trying to think. I don't want to like drop the hint and everyone get it. It kind of goes along with the whole helping people get work sort of thing. But how do I word it? It's not myself necessarily being the scout for that person to get work. So I'm not going to be the guy sat there scrolling through looking for jobs for people. Like the idea is that jobs will hopefully come naturally to them through the means that I am working.
That sounds interesting. feel like I have an idea.
Callun, consider my appetite teased.
Yeah, I'm very feeling very teased right now, but I'm excited to see it in the flesh and what it actually is.
Yeah, 100%.
Right, it's early days for sure. But
the aspirations side of stuff. Do you have any like parkour goals? So like jumps that you want to hit. Yeah, jumps you want to hit, or like places you want to go training. That's always a good one. I fucking love when people talk about where they want to go.
Places that I want to visit. I really want to travel to the States, and
100%. It's got to be done. Any specific?
It's definitely changed. So it's definitely changed, but more so recently. But my perception until about three years ago was that a lot of like the American community just trained in gyms, and I feel like there's not necessarily enough documentation of outdoor training in the US like there is in the UK.
Yeah, no, there definitely isn't. I think
if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But
I think there's like it's a mix. So it's, for example, I think like, so if you take Darryl Stingley as a good example, he mostly documents his training in the gym because that's where he spends most of his time. Then he saves all his outside clips for like bigger projects. But then also he makes a good point of like it's like in America it's a lot harder to like get away with getting kicked off and stuff. You get more fines and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, like that, and that's what I want to see. Like that's the. I'm not saying that people need to go out there and risk fines or arrests or getting shot or whatever like that. But like I want to learn more about here, police sharp, you get moved on, you're on your way. But I want to see how difficult it is for them to do essentially what we do here on a daily basis. Like I want to learn more about their culture.
Yeah, that sounds sick. That sounds so sick. You can't, because you could film that. Like if someone went and just filmed like the situation of like them being kicked out or like how like that all unfolds, it'd be cool. Because here it's literally just like someone comes over, they ask you to go, and you're like, yeah, sure, see you like, in a bit. Like, see you next time I'm at the spot. But I don't really know how it goes in America, because a lot of people do complain about the ability to train outside. But then I do see a lot of people train outside at the same time, so it's a weird one. Like Max Henry has only been posting outside clips recently, I swear. I guess because all the gyms are closed.
Oh yeah, true. True. Yeah, his video with Christine was so good.
Yeah,
they both absolutely killed it. It's a real branch of like parkour media that hasn't been explored all that much.
Yeah, it's like the real life stuff, as opposed to.
Yeah, I feel like we need to move away now from, not necessarily move away from it, but it's like you guys are saying, there's so much untapped territory. We've got like event documentation, we've got progression for ourselves, progression of our teams and our groups, and like the behind the scenes of those videos. But is it one in 4 people in the UK have a mental health problem? That means in most parkour teams, there is one individual in that group who is struggling with like a mental health disorder or a mental health problem of some kind. Like I want to know the story. Like someone who has, say, and I want to say this without offending someone if I've got it completely wrong, but say you're told that you should land with good foot placement. How does someone with OCD like deal with the fact that they're not necessarily going to have everything perfect each time?
Yeah, it sounds quite interesting.
So there's a lot I feel like that we can explore and learn about within individuals in the sport as well. Like it's all fucking sick being like a massive professional athlete or training all the time, but what's their story? How do they deal with the problems that everyone else deals with?
Yeah, that sounds fucking sick. like more of like a behind the scenes of a person as opposed to behind the scenes of a video or anything like that. It's like what does the person deal with while also being mad good at this like sport? What sort of things are they like battling to also be good at, or like also facilitate their ability to be good at the sport? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking cool.
Yeah. That's aspiration wise, I guess that's the end goal in parkour, I guess. It's not necessarily just being the best that I can physically be, but learning more about the sport and the individuals that are in it.
Yeah, that sounds fucking sick. Sounds really cool.
Yeah, that's brilliant, mate.
Yeah, it's actually so sick. It's been 50 minutes since I started my timer, and I started my timer like 10 minutes after you tried. So it's actually been like an hour. Just so this doesn't end up being mad long. We'll go through the end question, which is
Yes, my favourite bit.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's based on something that you said to me, Marcus, actually. But so, Callum, what has been the happiest day you've had training? It doesn't have to be like you didn't have to do the biggest stuff. You didn't have to do like tick off a challenge from years ago. It's just how like the most fun you've had on a day training. Because a lot of the time, like I'll be an example. Sometimes I take off mad challenges that I like have been wanting to do, but I just walk away really unsatisfied, or like I didn't have fun doing it. Like the process wasn't as fun as it could have been compared to days where I do like a shitty tiny little thing, but it was super fun. That makes sense. So try and focus on the fun as opposed to whether the challenge was big. Yeah.
I think there was one training session that we all had in, I think it was 2013. It was very, very early days. But for me, it just ticked all the boxes. Like the whole horseshoe community was out. Everyone was getting on with each other. There was sick movement going down, but at the same time, there were people failing, like not savagely, but the fact that you could laugh at it. So we were all behind Sainsbury's, we were all chilling out. And I think in the space of about 20 minutes, 3 people went to the concrete and just like split legged it like that and just nutted themselves.
That's awful.
But it's savage, but it was just funny that it just happened in succession of like one after the other. And that was like what I grew up training about. So that specific day where there wasn't necessarily mad progression going on, but everyone was just having a good time. And it was people that you wouldn't necessarily think would be mixing with each other, right? So yeah, that day was the most fun. Trying to think specifically what I did that day. I think it was the first day I bounced Sainsbury's concrete.
Oh.
I didn't even do it, I just bounced it. But for me, that bounce was like, I can do that.
That's a stepping stone. It's like that is on the card. Yeah. That's a jump that Callun Lavington can do by bouncing it. That's so sick. Marcus, do you have one, or do you want me to go first?
I do. Well, I mean, I've got one that I've just tried to think up on the spot. I may give I'll probably think about this all night now, but one that came to mind was a day when we went to Madrid like 2 years ago, and like Callum was saying, like it just ticked all the boxes. Like the things that are important to me in parkour are, yes, training obviously, but it's also just like seeing new places, hanging out with your friends, and like as cheesy as it sounds, it's like doing stuff that you'll remember forever. And like, so particularly it was the day at Tres Cantos, and like training was fucking. I've got a feeling, Chris, this is your day as well.
It is.
Okay, well, my account of it was I was quite achy, didn't do a huge amount of training, but had a really good day all the same. But then afterwards, we sat outside a supermarket and ate food on the pavement. Then couldn't find anywhere to sleep and ended up being invited into like a church and spent the night with this like lovely family who brought us pizzas and bedding and made us fresh orange juice the next morning, and just shit like that you won't ever forget. And it's like parkour is almost like the reason all of that happened. But yeah, and it was a sick day and Chris absolutely killed it. Well, everyone killed it. But
I
anyway,
did.
what was your count of the same day, Chris?
So mine's the day after. So
Oh, okay.
woke up in this church, got given food, like eggs and like breakfast, like a whole load of breakfast for free from these absolute donnies, because they saw us home, like, or not homeless, but like eating food sitting on the floor outside a shop, and they're like, "Do you want to come stay here?" We're like, "Yeah, sure." And then that day, everyone was absolutely fucked. Like our legs just like weren't working, but somehow we literally went to Tres Cantos, and everyone just banged like a last clip of the video, and it was so fucking sick. And like I just remember like looking at certain things and people just like talking about it and be like, "I want to do it, but my legs are fucked," and then they just build up and get into doing it, and it was so sick. And then everyone just like, we just left. I feel like we got to the airport and we were just fucked. Like we were just lying there, just like.
Oh, yeah.
I remember you and me. You were in Burger King. I'm pretty sure this is the same one. We're in Burger King, trying to sleep underneath like some tables, like before the flight.
Yeah.
And just creasing at everything, just because we didn't know what to do.
That stage of like tiredness when it's just delirious.
Yeah,
So good.
I definitely that trip unbelievable. My hands are fucked as well. I got like scars from cutting open my hands on bloody pebble ponds.
Christ.
Yeah, but that's mine. The day after Marcus's was my favourite day.
Yeah.
He enjoyed the day before, and then I had a better time the next day. That's really cool. Well, and in that fashion, with that last question, we'll call it there. Big thank you, Callum, for coming on. I feel like it's been incredibly.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, safe, man.
Thank you for having me.
We haven't talked about it too like extensively, like because we just chat about training or like whatever's going on that day. But it's really cool to just have like a chat about all the condensed stuff. And now I'm super interested. And every time I see you, I'm going to ask what this project is that you're doing because I want to know.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah, thank you for coming
when
on.
I can confirm more about it, I will let you guys know. But it's so early at the moment. I don't want to say anything and shoot myself in the foot. So.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Sounds like a great concept.
Cool. Thank you very much, Callun.
Yeah, thank you. And then thank you for everyone watching / listening. Because I guess you're the reason why we do it. I mainly do it because I enjoy it. But if you like to listen, I appreciate it a lot. Goodbye. I'm stopping recording now.